Welcome. In this video, we're going to talk about Social Security, what it is, why it's in trouble, and different options to fix it. The problem with Social Security is that for every $100 promised, $80 is funded and $20 isn't. And this is our largest single U.S. government program at $1.6 trillion annually. Payroll taxes that we pay to cover Social Security no longer cover promised benefits. This is a pay-as-you-go system, so that means what you pay in goes to current beneficiaries. After 2034, maybe earlier, incoming payroll taxes cover only about 80 to 81% of scheduled benefits unless something is done. And that's how much benefits fall if we maintain the current law. Beneficiaries only get about 80 to 81% of what was scheduled. So for Social Security, it's more than just retirement. It's about 75% retirement, but it's also disability, survivor benefits, children of deceased workers, and spousal benefits. Why is it under pressure? Because when it was first started in 1940 or so, there were 159 people supporting each beneficiary. That's an amazing number. I had to check that. It's true. Today, there's only 2.7. So there's many, many fewer workers supporting beneficiaries, and that number continues to go down. Meanwhile, we're living much longer than we did back in the 40s. Birth rates have declined. And even after baby boomers retire and are gone, the challenges continue with the next generations. We continue to live longer, and future generations are not much smaller than the baby boomers, even though that's a huge generation. So this continues. It's not something that ends when the baby boomers retire. There's some other myths about Social Security we should cover. First, my payroll taxes are going into my own retirement account. Not true. This is a pay-as-you-go system, so your payroll taxes are used to pay today's beneficiaries. Two, the Social Security Trust Fund is just an accounting gimmick. Not true. The trust fund holds U.S. Treasury bonds, and these are legally binding obligations of the federal government. Three, Social Security is going bankrupt. It's not. Even if the trust fund reserves are depleted, ongoing payroll taxes are still enough to cover about 80% of scheduled benefits under current law. So it's not going away. We're just going to look at reductions in scheduled benefits. Four, I paid in, so I should get back everything I contributed. This is probably one of the biggest myths. Social Security is insurance. It's not a personal investment account. You don't have any assets in an account somewhere. Some people receive a lot more than they contributed, while others get less. It all depends on your lifetime earnings, your longevity, disability, survivor benefits, and the fact that the program is set up to be progressive. And finally, one simple fix will solve the problem. Politicians love the simple three-word bumper sticker slogan. Unfortunately, that won't work here. Most people believe that the long-term funding gap will only be solved with some combination of revenue increases, that means taxes, and benefit changes rather than a single solution. Let's look at the different options. Write in the comments which one you support, or maybe you have another idea. The first option is to just let things be the way they are, maintain the current law. There's no changes until the trust fund reserves are exhausted, and then people see a 20% cut in their scheduled benefits. It happens automatically. There's some pros to this. First, there's no tax increases required. In a way, it's the politically easiest option, only because nobody has to do anything, but certainly both parties will blame each other for letting this happen. I like the concept of automatic spending control. I wish more programs had that, and that's what happens if we maintain the current law. It's built in. Also, young voters tend to really like this option. A lot of them don't think they're going to get Social Security anyway. The cons, it's a 20% automatic benefit cut to everybody, and this is really painful for a lot of people if it happens, because half of retired couples and about 70% of unmarried retirees receive half or more of their income from Social Security. So this is serious. It's a sudden jolt to retirees that are not prepared. It's also, as you can expect, unpopular with older voters, so there's a lot of dispute and controversy about this particular plan. Either way, somebody's not going to be happy. Option two is personal retirement accounts. This is something we tried to pass in 2005 and it didn't happen, but it has a lot of potential benefits. Instead of sending all of payroll taxes to today's retirees, workers can direct some of their payroll taxes into a personal retirement investment account. So now they have actual money that can be invested in diversified funds, and the remaining payroll taxes that they're paying continue to fund the traditional Social Security system, although, of course, this will be an added expense because you're doing two things. At retirement, though, workers get income from both Social Security and their personal account. So the current system, workers pay payroll taxes. This goes to somebody else, to current retirees. In the proposed system, workers split what they pay to a personal account that they keep that grows for them, and they're also paying for Social Security. Supporters like this because people build a nest egg. They actually have something they're building that grows over time, and potentially you could phase out the Social Security pay as you go system longer term. However, it didn't happen. And the question is, would it work today? Why did it fail in 2005? There was divided public opinion. There was a lot of concern about investment risk after market downturns. And it was also a very large transition cost because we're paying for two things at once. Payroll taxes have to be diverted while current retirees still had to be paid. So it's very complicated financing. Could it work today? Yes, but it would require a lot, a gradual transition over several decades, significant borrowing or new revenue to cover current retirees, rules that would limit investment choices to diversified, low cost, lower risk funds, most likely. And you'd need bipartisan agreement to protect current retirees while younger workers gradually get into this new system. The bottom line, personal accounts could create more individual ownership, also higher retirement savings, but the transition would be one of the largest and most expensive policy changes in Social Security's history. Option three is somewhat similar. People are talking about it a lot now. It's Australia's system. It's called superannuation, and it's private ownership with a public safety net. So what happens here is there's mandatory private retirement accounts, employers contribute, individuals own investments, and there's also a government safety net. So it's very similar to what I just described. Very successful model in Australia, but it took decades to happen. It was launched in the 80s. About $4 trillion has been invested. But again, the question here is, do we have the patience and long-term thinking to do this? The pros, higher national savings, ownership of assets, and investment growth, but this would be a huge transition cost for the United States. It would take decades to come to fruition, and the question is whether we have that long-term stomach. Option four, what about means testing? A lot of people don't need Social Security. Maybe we make it even more progressive than it is now. Should wealthy retirees that don't need Social Security receive full benefits or any benefits at all? The pros here are that it certainly reduces long-term program costs. It focuses benefits on the retirees that actually need the money, and that was the initial intent of the program. And it could reduce the need for across-the-board tax increases or benefits cuts to people who really need it. The cons are now we're changing Social Security. It's no longer a universal earned benefit program. It's a more targeted program. Also, people who paid in throughout their careers are going to be angry. They may receive much smaller benefits, if any. And it also is challenging logistically. It requires Congress to define who gets money and who doesn't, who is wealthy enough to receive reduced benefits. And that is politically contentious and not easy to do. There are people who have made a lot and haven't saved anything due to catastrophic events, for instance. The real question here is, should Social Security remain insurance or become more like welfare? Just become a social safety net for those people who have retired and for whatever reason just don't have enough money to live with dignity. So that's means testing or making Social Security more progressive. So we've seen four options so far. Keep the current law, two that actually create accounts for people that they can grow, and this one is more about changing the fundamental nature of Social Security to make it more like welfare. Option five, what about raising or eliminating the payroll tax cap? Right now, Social Security payroll taxes only apply to wages up to an annual cap, about $180,000 in 2026. So we could raise the cap substantially. We could eliminate it entirely. I've heard some proposals to cap it at $180,000 and then start up again after maybe $400,000 or $500,000. So this would certainly raise significant additional revenue. It would affect higher income workers, so it's progressive if we think that higher income workers should shoulder more of a burden. And it leaves benefits unchanged for most Americans. The cons, it still does not on its own eliminate the long-term funding gap. Higher income workers get a lower return on their contributions. They already receive a lower return than others because the system's progressive. And it could lead to compensation changes at very high incomes. Why? Because employers pay half of the Social Security tax. And so if they have to pay more for longer, that might have an impact on the wages they're willing to pay or who they're willing to hire. So the bottom line is this would raise meaningful revenue. Maybe it has to be a part of any solution, but it's not going to solve the problem alone. Option 6, what about legal immigration? Could that be part of the solution? More payroll taxes when we have more workers, and that means more revenue for Social Security. The pros are it expands the workforce, it helps offset lower U.S. birth rates, and it improves Social Security finances over time. The cons, first of all, just saying the word immigration is sensitive. It's a politically sensitive topic. What do we mean by who's legal, who's not legal? Also, immigrants eventually retire and receive benefits. So there's offsetting costs, and immigration levels needed to fully solve the problem would really be unrealistic. This is not going to address the imbalance by itself, but it can be part of the solution. So the bottom line, legal immigration can help, not a complete solution. Option 7, a lot of politicians love to promise economic growth as the solution to everything. It'll solve our deficit, our debt, and Social Security, right? And it makes sense. With economic growth, we get more payroll tax collections, and that can improve Social Security's finances. However, even sustained strong growth is not going to eliminate the long-term funding gap that we have now. And it's just not accurate to say we can reliably depend on unusually rapid growth for decades. It doesn't happen. Politicians often promise this, and it doesn't happen, and the problem gets worse. Also, politicians are tempted to make economic policy decisions based on what's popular, not necessarily what actually does lead to economic growth. They just say this will lead to economic growth, and it's not backed up, and it's not true. So economic growth helps, but the math still doesn't fully work, and I'm not sure that our politicians are fully in control of what leads to economic growth. Option 8, finally, are incremental reforms, doing a bunch of things, such as raising the full retirement age, increasing the payroll tax rate a little bit or somewhat, raising or eliminating the payroll tax cap, as we discussed. And you can see on the screen the long-term savings and the political difficulty of any of these. They're all moderate to high difficulty. We argue about everything. We could slow benefit growth for future retirees through progressive indexing. We could reduce the COLAs. A COLA is the cost of living adjustment, or we could make it a fixed COLA. That's an idea that I hear about a lot. It's a very good one. So for instance, if you get $50,000 in Social Security a year, or you get $10,000, your cost of living adjustment is the same. Maybe it's $500. So the person earning $10,000 a year in Social Security gets a 5% bump, but the person getting $50,000 gets more like a 1% bump. Make it fixed instead of a percentage. I've heard that this could have a big impact. Increase taxes on Social Security benefits. This would be pretty unpopular and would probably not have a huge savings. Means testing benefits, as we've discussed, and increasing immigration as well as economic growth. So it's probably going to be a combination of all of these things that come together. I asked AI what would be the impact of different options, and it came up with raising the retirement age might address 20% of the shortfall, raising payroll taxes 35%, of course, more or less, depending on how much we raise them, eliminating the wage cap 30%, means testing 10 to 20%, immigration 5 to 10%. So there's a lot of potential solutions. You can work with AI yourself and come up with the best mix of solutions that you like. So I also asked AI, what do you think is possible? What might a bipartisan compromise look like? And it suggests that on the revenue side, we'll raise the wage cap. That means people who make more continue to pay into Social Security, even if they're over the $180,000, and some sort of small payroll tax increase. On the benefit side, raising the retirement age, even though that's caused riots in countries like France. Progressive indexing, meaning those who've earned more get less in terms of future retirees once they join Social Security, and small COLA changes, like we discussed, either reducing the cost of living adjustment or making it fixed. And then we want to make sure that current retirees are still protected and the lowest income retirees are still protected. So the most likely solution is some sort of package that asks several groups to contribute a little, to sacrifice a little one way or the other. The choice on the table, though, is when we act. The sooner we act, the more we can make small changes. If we wait until the trust fund is depleted, there's going to be automatic cuts and they're going to be severe. If we act soon, we can implement solutions gradually. If we wait, we don't have as much time to prepare. If we act now, workers can plan. They know how much they're going to have to save beyond Social Security, and they can get ready for budgeting. If we wait, there's going to be greater financial disruption. So if we act soon, more options. If we wait, fewer choices. So what does this mean for you? Develop your own point of view. Put in the comments what you think the best option is. Let your elected officials know what you think. Get involved. The only way they're going to change their behavior, which tends to be avoiding difficult decisions, is if all of us let them know that we're watching and we care and we know this is a big issue. Also, encourage thoughtful conversations. Use facts and logic about what's really happening. Listen to other people. Collaborate with them. Have some give and take. We really need to have better conversations politically, especially online. And come join us. Go to longtermamerica.com. We're going to start having live virtual meetings with people to talk about these issues, to have thoughtful discussions and debate, respectful discussions, and we're going to see what we come up with. You'll get to meet some new people and have some really interesting conversations. So go to longtermamerica.com. There's tons of articles and resources there. And thank you.